Hey everyone, I'm back again with a little technique. This is going to be more of a talking technique than a materials and showing you what to do technique. To do this, I used a cheap notebook. This is one of my Jotter notebooks. It's got acid-free, 24-pound like resume paper, 25% cotton. It's nice and thin, because what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to create pattern papers to use in my art journal that are free for use. I'm going to scan some of mine in and put them up on my Flickr account later this week so that you can print them with a color printer or black and white printer, whatever makes you happy. And so here's my almost finished book. The first thing I did was I went through and kind of just painted the pages with acrylic paint and watercolor crayons and watercolor pencils. Just covered every page in color. I went from reds to black. I used every color in my arsenal, every color that I had, just spread them out. And I spread them with big, wide bristle brushes and credit cards. Old credit cards make great tools to spread things out. You can also use a palette knife to spread things out. And the idea is just get the color on there. And then the next step is to start creating patterns. And I started out by just doodling little squiggles and swirls. So that's like page one. I used a jelly roll pen to create that. And then I also, well, here's another jelly roll pen. This is a pale green, yellow-green background with jelly roll little flowers. Also, you can just doodle or whatever. I also carved my own rubber stamps out of a variety of materials, and this is one of the pattern pages. This is an element that shows up a lot in my work, a little target sign, and that's carved out of a rubber, a cork actually. Here's another one, also carved out of a wine cork. So if you drink wine, save your corks because you can use them in your art journal. Another just doodled pattern. This is a commercially available dauber, and here's a larger version of it, or a smaller version, sorry. And I just basically made a pattern and dipped this into ink and printed it all over. You can also do the same thing with you know, rubber stamps. Just continually like print the page. This was a mask to create the grid. That was a really pain in the butt mask to carve, and I carved it, cut it out of a old priority mailers. So save your priority mailers, cut chunks out of them, and you can create masks out of them. Those are particularly good for a couple time use. This is a Sharpie cap dipped in white acrylic paint, just tapped over and over and over on the page to create the pattern. I also used some Liquitex. Can you see the metallic? That's a silver acrylic ink that I put on a toilet paper tube. And I just printed that over and over and over on the page to kind of create something fun. So that's what the pages look like, and the tools that I use to make those patterns. Old gift cards, you can dip the edges of it and, you know, make lines with it. You can scrape paint around with it. I created some hand-carved stamps. You can use this with acrylic paint. You can also use this with a regular stamp pad. I also I wanted to get some grungy lines, not in this, but this is just a stack of cardboard, like the thin cardboard, like cereal box, and you know, I pressed that into an ink pad and kind of dragged it and made like grungy lines all over a page. That's really cool. The other thing, you can use a variety of things. Here's the one of my carved wine corks. So if you drink wine, save your cork because you can make some cool stamps out of it. And these stamps, you know, this is a relatively simple stamp. This is a plastic wine cork. They don't carve as easily, but you can get some really simple patterns. A little flower pattern. Here's a carved rubber stamp. These erasers are nice and cheap and make a good rubber stamp. I just made some lines so that if I wanted to print lines to write on. Let's see, what else do I have in here? This is a piece of paper with an elastic around it to make a circle, and I can dip that in paint and print with it. The other thing, you can use commercial rubber stamps, but when you use commercial rubber stamps, they have some of them are copyright, so you got to be careful when you use those. You can also use some letter and number blocks. I'm trying to think of other things. Basically, like pens, the same thing that you use to art journal, you can create these patterns with. And then at the end of it, you can rip the pages out and cut them up, or you can leave, you know, them bound in the book. I like them bound in the book. You could also just use these techniques in your journal to create colored patterns. The other thing you can do, last thing, is create a mask. Maybe I'll do a whole video on mask making. But this is a mask. This is the actual white of the page. I use spray inks around it to create the red, and then India ink in a spray bottle to create the black. I think that's just kind of a cool image, and so that's my video, and I hope that you make your own pattern page book. To make this, you could also use, if you've got a journal that you didn't like the paper in, you could do this kind of technique in that and just rip the pages out of the back of the journal. So anyway,